You're listening to Daily Prayer Stories, Cinematic Journeys of Faith, where everyday struggles meet eternal hope. Daily Prayer Stories presents Season 4, The Story of Grace. Part 1, The Church Door. A woman running from her past stops in front of a door she swore she'd never open again. The bus wheezed to a stop on Main Street, its brakes squealing against the February cold. Grace stepped off, duffel bag slung over one shoulder, breath fogging in the air. The town looked smaller than she remembered, rows of brick storefronts, a diner with a flickering open sign, and the steeple of First Baptist Church, cutting through the gray sky like a promise she didn't want to face. She hadn't planned to come back here. Not after the things she'd said. Not after the way she'd left. But her options had run out 2 days ago. The landlord's final notice. The last of her savings gone, and a silence from the people she once called friends. Now, standing in front of the same streets where she'd grown up. Grace felt the familiar knot in her stomach, that mix of shame and longing that came whenever she remembered what she lost. The parsonage beside the church still looked the same. White siding, blue shutters, a porch that sagged in the middle. She could almost hear her father's voice calling from it, "Grace, don't slam the door," followed by her mother's laugh echoing from the kitchen window. That was years ago. Before the arguments, before the running, before the mistakes that piled up like unpaid bills on her heart, she shifted, the strap on her shoulder, and started walking. Toward the church dot, every step on the icy sidewalk sounded louder than it should. When she reached the steps, she stopped. The heavy wooden doors loomed before her, the same ones she'd walked out of 3 years earlier. After shouting words she wished she could erase, she ran her fingers along the carved wood, tracing the grain. "I said I'd never come back," she whispered. "But here I am." Inside, she could see faint light through the stained glass. Morning sun filtered through blue and amber panes, painted the snow outside in color. She hesitated, then pushed the door open. The hinges groaned. The sound echoing through the sanctuary. It smelled exactly the same. Candle wax, old hymnals, and something warm. Almost holy. Her footsteps on the wooden floor seemed too loud. At the front of the church, someone was playing piano softly. The melody was familiar. "It is well with my soul." Grace froze. That was her mother's song. The man at the piano turned slightly. He was older now, gray at the temples, but she recognized him instantly. "Pastor John." "Grace?" he said, voice low, gentle, like he didn't quite believe it. "Hi, Pastor," she said, trying to sound casual, but her voice cracked halfway through the word. "Sorry to just show up," he smiled, not wide, but real. "You don't have to apologize for walking into a church." She looked down, blinking fast. "Yeah, but maybe for how I left it." He stood, walking slowly toward her. "We all leave sometimes," he said. "But Grace," he paused, smiling at the irony of her name. "Grace always knows how to find its way home." She laughed quietly. "That sounds like something you'd say in a sermon." "It was," he said, chuckling. "The week after you left." Her eyes dropped again. "I guess I missed that one." He nodded toward the front pew. "Sit with me a minute." They sat in silence for a while. The stained glass light shifted across the floor. Finally, she said, "I messed everything up, Pastor. My job, my relationships, even my faith. Especially my faith." He nodded slowly. "You know, God's good at working with broken pieces. That's where he does his best art." She let out a shaky breath. "I used to believe that. Then life happened." He looked at her gently. "And now life's happening again. Maybe this time you let him hold the brush." She didn't answer. She just stared at the cross above the altar. It wasn't glowing or magical, just wood, simple, steady. Her eyes burned. She whispered, "I don't even know where to start." He opened his Bible and turned it toward her. "Start here," he said. "If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins, and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness." 1 John chapter 1. Verse 9, King James Version. She read it quietly, mouthing the words. Then again. And again, when she looked up, her voice was a whisper. It's been a long time since I believed anyone could forgive me. He smiled softly. Then today's the perfect day to start believing again. Grace didn't pray out loud that morning. She didn't need to. Just sitting there, tears slipping quietly down her face, was enough. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like an outsider in church. She felt like a daughter fighting her way back home. Part 2. The call she didn't want to answer. Sometimes the hardest part of forgiveness is answering the phone when the past calls your name. The snow had melted into gray slush by the next morning. The sky hung low, the color of steel. Grace sat in the church office, helping Pastor John sort through donation receipts. The quiet rhythm of papers and pencils was oddly comforting, the kind of peace she hadn't felt in years. Every now and then, she'd glance out the window. The church parking lot glistened wet under the cold light. Across the street, the diner sign flickered again, open. But the P blinked in and out like it was too tired to keep up. I felt symbolic. Everything in her life was half lit lately. When her phone buzzed, she didn't recognize the number. For a second, she considered ignoring it. But something in her gut told her to look. Jason. The name flashed across the screen. Like a ghost she tried to bury, she froze. Her hands went cold. It had been almost a year since she'd spoken to him. The man she thought would save her when she left home. Instead, he drained her bank account, her spirit, and nearly her will to try again. She let the phone buzz out once. Twice. Then silence. Pastor John looked up from his papers. You okay? Grace forced a smile. Yeah, just spam. But inside, her chest was pounding. She excused herself, stepping into the hallway. The air was cooler there, the faint scent of old wood and hymnals wrapping around her. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a message. Grace, please, just hear me out. She closed her eyes. Not today, she whispered. But part of her, the old part, the one that always wanted to fix everything, ached to answer. That night, she sat in her small apartment above the hardware store. She hadn't unpacked much, just a suitcase, a Bible, and a few photos she couldn't throw away. She heated a can of soup and stared at her phone glowing on the counter. Another text appeared. I know I messed up. I just need 5 minutes, please. She set the spoon down and leaned back in her chair. Memories came flooding in. The arguments, the lies, the way he made her believe she was the problem. She grabbed her Bible and opened it where she'd marked a verse that morning at the church. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans chapter 12, verse 21, King James Version. She whispered it aloud. Overcome evil with good. Then, almost immediately, she said under her breath, but what if the evil calls from your past? Her phone buzzed again. She answered this time, not because she wanted to, but because she needed to stop running. Grace, Jason's voice came through, rough, tired. You sound different. She didn't answer. He continued, look, I know you don't owe me anything, but I owe you an apology. I was wrong about everything. Grace exhaled slowly. You were. I'm clean now, he said quickly. I have been sober for 4 months. I got a job at a garage in Wichita. I'm trying to fix things. That's good, she said quietly. I hope it's real this time. It is, he said. But I can't fix what I did to you. I know that. I wanted you to hear it from me. I'm sorry. Her throat tightened. She wanted to hang up, but the apology, the one she prayed for but never expected, held her there. Jason, she said, voice trembling, you broke me. You made me believe I wasn't worth anything. But God's been teaching me that forgiveness isn't about saying it didn't hurt. It's about saying it doesn't own me anymore. Silence. Then quietly, you've changed. I had to, she said. Pain will either make you bitter or make you new. I chose new. After they hung up, Grace sat there for a long time, staring at the phone in her hand. Her heart didn't feel lighter right away. Forgiveness wasn't a magic trick. But there was a peace under the ache, a small, steady kind. She opened her Bible again and underlined another verse. And they shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. John chapter 8, verse 32, King James Version. She whispered. The truth is, I'm free. That night, she dreamed of her mother. They were sitting at the old kitchen table, sunlight spilling through the window. Her mom was humming that same song, It Is Well With My Soul. Grace asked, Mom, how do you forgive someone who doesn't deserve it? Her mother smiled, eyes kind. Sweetheart, that's the only kind of forgiveness there is. When Grace woke, tears covered her pillow. But this time, they weren't the heavy kind. They were cleansing. The next morning, she walked to the church early. The air was cold, the streets quiet. When she reached the steps, she stopped and whispered, Thank you. It wasn't for what she'd lost, but for what she'd finally released. Part 3. The Letter on the Doorstep. Sometimes the hardest truths don't come from people. They come in envelopes you didn't ask for. Saturday morning came gray and quiet. The streets were wet from a night of rain, and a thin fog clung to the trees. Grace sat by her apartment window, a mug of coffee warming her hands. The town moved slowly outside, a mail truck humming past. A dog barking down the block, a mother pulling her child across a puddle dot. It was one of those mornings that didn't demand anything. Just existed. And for once, that was enough. She'd slept better than she had in months. No dreams, no panic, just peace. The kind that felt fragile but real, like a candle that hadn't burned out yet. When she heard a knock at the door, she hesitated. Nobody ever came by without calling first. She opened the door slowly. The hallway was empty, except for a plain white envelope lying on the mat. Her name was written across it in blue ink. No return address. She picked it up, turned it over. Nothing. Her chest tightened. Inside, she found a folded letter and a small photograph. The letter was handwritten, shaky but deliberate. Grace, I know I'm the last person you expect to hear from. I heard through your cousin that you're back in town. I don't know if this is the right thing to do, but there are things I need to say, things I should have said years ago. I wasn't there for you when your mom got sick. I wasn't there when you needed help the most. And when you called that night, I didn't pick up. That's something I'll live with until the Lord takes me home. I've been sober for almost 2 years now. I've been praying every day that God would give me one more chance to make peace before it's too late. If you're willing, I'd like to see you. Dad, her breath caught. She stared at the name, the handwriting she hadn't seen since she was a teenager. The photo was of the three of them, her mom, and her dad at the lake when she was 8. Her dad's arm around her shoulder, her mom laughing in the sunlight. The memory hit like a flood, warm. Then cold dot she sat down hard on the couch, the letter trembling in her hands. Of all the people she thought she'd have to forgive, her father wasn't one of them. She had buried that wound so deep she thought it was gone. Her father, the man who'd lost himself in alcohol after her mom's death. The man who'd yelled things he could never take back. The man who'd disappeared for years, leaving her to figure life out alone dot, and now he wanted to see her. Part of her wanted to rip the letter up. Another part wanted to run straight to him dot instead. She folded it carefully and placed it on the table beside her Bible. That night, she couldn't sleep. She walked to the window and looked out at the street lights reflecting off the wet pavement. Her thoughts felt loud. God, she whispered, why now? Why him? I just started to feel whole again. She opened her Bible, not even sure where to turn. The pages fell open to a verse she'd underlined in blue months ago, back when she thought forgiveness was for other people, not her. And be ye kind one to another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32, King James Version. She read it once. Then again, her voice cracked. Even him? She waited. No thunder, no divine voice. Just quiet. But in that quiet, she felt something shift. Not an answer, but a direction. Sunday morning, she walked to church early. The fog had lifted, the air clear and cold. Pastor John was already there, setting out bulletins. You look like you didn't sleep, he said. I didn't, she admitted. She handed him the letter. He read it slowly, then looked up. Grace, you don't have to decide right away. She nodded. I know, but I think I already did. He raised an eyebrow. And I'm going to see him. That afternoon, she stood in front of an old house on the edge of town. The porch sagged, the paint peeling. A small cross hung by the door dot. Her heart pounded as she knocked. When the door opened, she almost didn't recognize him. Her father looked smaller than she remembered, older, fragile. But his eyes, those were the same dot. He froze. Grace, hey, Dad. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he stepped forward, tears already spilling down his face. I didn't think you'd come. She swallowed hard. I almost didn't. I prayed you would. I know, she said softly. I did too. They sat in the living room, quiet at first. Old photos lined the shelves, her mother smiling from every frame. I kept everything, he said, voice trembling. Couldn't let her go. I couldn't either, she admitted. He looked at her, his eyes red. I was a terrible father, Grace. I don't deserve your forgiveness. She leaned forward. You're right. You don't. He froze until she added, but neither do I. That's the point of grace. Her father covered his face with his hands. I'm so sorry. I know, she whispered. And I forgive you. For the first time in years, peace filled the old house. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It just settled in quietly, like the sunlight that spilled through the window onto the floor dot as she stood to leave. Her father said, Can I come to church next week? She smiled. Yeah, I think Mom would like that. That night, back in her apartment, Grace placed the letter in her Bible between the pages of Ephesians chapter 4. Then she whispered the same words she told her father. I forgive you. But this time, it wasn't for him. It was for herself.